The city of Arvin had always been a place of noise and movement. Its towers touched the clouds, and its streets were filled with machines that hummed as they passed by. On this day, however, the noise was louder than usual. The council had called the people to the central square. It was said that a great announcement would be made, one that would change the future of all humans. Ryan walked slowly with the crowd. He was a young mechanic who spent most of his days repairing old machines in the lower districts. His hands were rough from work, his clothes plain, and his thoughts simple. He was not interested in the council or in the speeches they gave. The only reason he was here was because his friend Taro had insisted. "Come on, Ryan," Taro had said earlier that morning. "This is history. We are about to see something no one has ever seen before." Now Ryan stood among thousands of people, pushed from side to side by the movement of the crowd. Flags waved from high poles. Children sat on their parents' shoulders. Merchants shouted and sold water to the waiting citizens. Everyone seemed excited, but Ryan only felt tired. He lifted his eyes to the great stage that had been built in front of the council hall. Tall banners hung from its walls, showing the emblem of unity, a circle with a rising sun in its center. The council guards stood in neat rows, their armor polished until it shone. Ryan folded his arms and sighed. "I should be fixing the generator," he muttered. Taro laughed. "You can fix the generator tomorrow. Today we see the envoys." The envoys. The word itself carried weight. Rumors had spread for weeks. Some said they were alien leaders who wanted peace. Others claimed they were machines made of silver. Some even whispered that they were here to take control of the city. No one truly knew, because the council had kept everything secret. As the crowd shifted again, Ryan noticed a figure only a few steps away. A person wearing a dark hood moved carefully through the people, keeping the head down, as if not wanting to be seen. At first, Ryan thought nothing of it. Many wore hoods to protect themselves from the sharp sunlight. Yet something about the way this figure moved felt different. Slow but purposeful, silent among the noise. The bells of the council hall rang, deep and heavy, and the crowd fell quiet. Everyone turned toward the stage. The air filled with tension. Then the sky itself seemed to tremble. Above the city, ships appeared. They came without fire or sound, gliding down as if the air carried them. Their hulls were silver, polished like mirrors, and they reflected the light of the twin suns. They moved in perfect lines, without mistake, as though one mind guided them all. Gasps rose from the people. Many clapped, others shouted with joy. Ryan felt the ground shake lightly as the ships hovered above the square. Then one of them opened, and a long bridge of light stretched down to the stage. Figures began to descend. The envoys were tall and slender, their skin pale and smooth, their eyes glowing faintly like stars. They wore long garments that shimmered as they walked. Their steps were silent, and their faces calm, but their presence pressed heavily upon the air. The council leader stepped forward to greet them. His voice rang out strong and full of pride. "Today, the people of Arvin welcome our new allies. The envoys have come from beyond the stars to bring us knowledge, friendship, and peace. Let us honor them as partners in the future of humankind." The crowd cheered. Some waved their arms, others shouted the names of the council leaders. Ryan clapped once, only because everyone around him was doing the same. He glanced again at the hooded figure, who had stopped moving. The figure stood still, staring at the envoys, shoulders tense. Ryan frowned. He could not explain why, but he felt that the figure's eyes were sharp under that hood. The envoys raised their hands in a slow, graceful gesture. When they spoke, their voices were like music, smooth and layered, as though more than one sound came from their mouths at once. "People of Arvin, we greet you with open hearts. We come to share, to teach, and to walk with you into a brighter future. Let today be the beginning of a new chapter, written not by one world, but by many together. The words were perfect. Too perfect. Every line seemed designed to please the ear. The crowd cheered again, louder than before. Some people cried with joy. Ryan, however, felt a strange unease. Something in the way they spoke felt hollow, as if the words were memorized rather than lived. He looked once more at the hooded figure. The person's hands were clenched into fists. The hood tilted down, but Ryan caught a glimpse of a pale face hidden in the shadow. For a moment, his breath caught. He thought he saw silver marks upon the skin. He blinked, and the face was hidden again. Taro pulled on his arm. "Did you hear that? They will build schools, hospitals, even new machines to help us. This is the future, Ryan. The age of humans and envoys together." Ryan nodded slowly, though his eyes did not leave the hooded stranger. His heart beat faster, though he could not say why. The cheers of the crowd thundered around him, but all he could hear was the faint whisper of the wind moving through the square. Somewhere deep inside, he knew this day would not end the way the council promised. Something was hidden beneath the bright speeches and shining ships. And somehow, that hooded figure was part of it. The bells rang again, and the council leader continued his speech. But Ryan was no longer listening. His eyes stayed fixed on the stranger among the crowd. The ships hovered above the city with a soft hum, their silver hulls shining as if they had been polished by the suns themselves. The light reflected down into the square, painting the faces of thousands of people who stood shoulder to shoulder. Excitement filled the air like a storm ready to break. Every eye was fixed on the envoys. Ryan stood among the crowd, his arms crossed as he tried to appear calm. Yet his heart was not calm. The sight of the tall strangers unsettled him. Their movements were too smooth, their voices too perfect. The people around him did not seem to notice. They shouted with joy, waving their arms toward the stage. Children laughed and pointed at the ships, their eyes wide with wonder. Taro nudged Ryan in the ribs. "Look at them. Have you ever seen anything like this? They are not like us, but they feel right. Do you see the way they carry themselves? This is what peace looks like." Ryan gave a slow nod, though his mind was far away. His gaze drifted once more to the hooded figure in the crowd. The stranger had not moved much since the arrival of the envoys. The hood covered the face again, but the posture told a story of unease. The figure's shoulders were tense, hands clenched by the sides, as though bracing for something no one else expected. The council leader's voice echoed through the square again. "People of Arvin, the envoys bring knowledge from beyond our world. With them, we will build new towers, cure old sicknesses, and reach the stars as brothers and sisters. This is not a time of fear. This is a time of hope." The crowd cheered once more. The sound rose like thunder and filled every corner of the square. Ryan felt the ground tremble beneath his boots. He glanced at Taro, who was smiling so widely it seemed his face might split. Everyone believed. Everyone but him. The envoys raised their hands, long and pale, and the cheering stopped at once. It was as if the people could not help but obey. The tallest envoy stepped forward, his eyes glowing faintly with a soft silver light. When he spoke, his words fell into the ears of the crowd like music. "People of this world, you welcome us with open hearts. We come not to rule, but to guide. We come not to take, but to share. Together we will rise to heights no single world could reach alone. We ask only your trust, and we will give you a future brighter than any dream." The crowd erupted again, and many shouted promises of loyalty. Some even fell to their knees, tears streaming down their faces. Ryan stood still. His eyes narrowed. The words were beautiful, but they were too perfect. There was no hesitation, no slip, no trace of human weakness. It felt less like speech and more like a song repeated many times until it could not change. The hooded figure moved again. This time, closer. Slowly, carefully, the stranger pressed through the crowd until only a few people stood between Ryan and the dark cloak. For a brief moment, Ryan caught the edge of a pale jaw beneath the hood. His breath caught in his chest, and he quickly looked away, pretending to study the stage. More envoys spoke, each voice the same, smooth and layered, as if 100 echoes followed one sound. They promised gifts of healing, gifts of learning, gifts of strength. They spoke of building new cities and lifting every person into an age without hunger or sickness. Every promise lit fire in the hearts of the listeners. Ryan felt a different fire burning inside him. It was not hope, but suspicion. Something about the way they spoke reminded him of a machine repeating a set of instructions. He wanted to push the thought away, but it clung to him. The hooded figure stopped moving, standing almost beside him now. Ryan dared to glance sideways. Beneath the shadow of the hood, he caught the flash of eyes. Sharp, bright, and filled with a warning he could not understand. His heart skipped a beat. Then the bells of the council hall rang once more. The sound was deep, rolling through the square like the voice of the earth itself. The council leader raised his arms. Today marks the beginning of a new age. Our children will grow in safety. Our people will walk with the envoys as equals. Together, we will build a tomorrow worthy of every dream. The crowd roared with approval. Flags waved high, and songs of joy began to rise. But in that moment of celebration, Ryan saw the hooded figure lift a hand to the chest, as though in pain, or perhaps in fear. The fingers trembled. The hood tilted slightly, and Ryan thought he saw a silver line, like a mark etched into the skin. The sight struck him deeply. He wanted to speak, to ask, but his voice failed him. The figure lowered the hand and stood still again. As the ceremony continued, the ships above the city shifted slightly. Their silver hulls caught the light of the suns and cast it down into the streets, where it shone against glass and stone. The people pointed and marveled, but Ryan noticed something else. The ships moved in a way too precise, too controlled. They never drifted, never swayed, never faltered. They stood like soldiers waiting for a command. His stomach tightened. He had repaired enough machines in his life to know when something was alive and when it was following a program. The ships were waiting. For what, he could not tell. Beside him, Taro shouted with joy. Ryan, do you not see it? We are saved. Our future is safe now. Ryan forced a smile, though it did not reach his eyes. Maybe, he said softly. But his eyes returned to the hooded figure once more. The stranger had not joined in the cheering, not even once. The crowd moved like waves of joy, yet the figure stood against the current, unmoved, like a stone in rushing water. Ryan did not know why, but he felt that the stranger's silence was more important than all the voices of the envoys and the council combined. The suns dipped lower, painting the sky in red and gold. The ceremony neared its end. The envoys bowed with grace, and the council bowed back. The people sang with joy, filling the air with sound. Yet within the heart of Ryan, silence grew. He had come here to waste a day, dragged by a friend. He thought he would return home unchanged. But now he knew something had shifted. Something had begun. And though he did not understand it yet, he felt the weight of it pressing upon him like the shadow of the silver ships above. The sun had begun to sink lower in the sky, and the red light of evening painted the square in long shadows. The council ended their speeches, and the envoys stood silent, their glowing eyes sweeping across the crowd as if memorizing every face. The people sang and clapped, but slowly the noise began to fade. Families started to leave, merchants packed their stalls, and the great square turned into a restless sea of motion once more. Ryan stood still, his eyes fixed on the hooded figure. Something about that stranger held him fast. It was not only the way the figure stood apart from the joy of the crowd. It was the weight in the posture, as if carrying a truth too heavy to share. Taro tugged his arm. Let us go. The show is done. We should eat before the streets are full. You go, Ryan replied without turning. I will catch up. Taro frowned. You waste your time staring at shadows. Do not chase mystery where there is none. But when Ryan did not move, Taro gave a quick shake of his head and left, swallowed by the flow of people heading home. The square emptied quickly, though many still lingered to talk about the envoys and dream of the promises they had heard. Ryan stayed in place, his gaze locked on the hooded stranger. Then it happened. A sudden gust of wind swept across the square, rushing between the high towers. It pulled at flags, lifted dust into the air, and caught hold of the hood. Before the figure could react, the cloth slipped back. Ryan's breath stopped. The face revealed beneath the hood was unlike any he had ever seen. It was young, yet carried lines of weariness as if life had never offered rest. The skin was pale, touched by faint silver markings that glimmered when the sunlight struck them. The eyes were sharp, a piercing shade of gray that seemed to see more than human eyes could. For a single heartbeat, the world grew still. The crowd around them faded into nothing. All that existed were those eyes meeting his. Ryan felt as though his chest tightened. He had never spoken to this stranger, had never known a single thing about her, yet the moment their eyes met, something deep inside him shifted. It was not joy. It was not fear. It was a silent recognition, as if part of him had always known she was there. The woman gasped softly when she realized her hood had fallen. Quickly she pulled the cloth back over her head and turned away, trying to vanish into the crowd. But Ryan could not let her disappear. His legs moved before his mind decided. He pushed through the people, calling out, "Wait." The hooded figure walked faster. Her steps were quick but graceful, slipping between the others as though she had walked in crowds her whole life. Ryan hurried after her, nearly colliding with a group of merchants. He ignored their angry shouts and kept his eyes on the moving cloak. She reached the edge of the square, where the narrow streets of Arvin began. The light there was dim, shadows falling between tall stone buildings. Ryan followed, his breath heavy, his heart pounding against his chest. At last, he caught up when she paused in a quiet corner, half hidden in the shade of an archway. She turned sharply, eyes flashing beneath the hood. "Why are you following me?" Her voice was low, steady, yet laced with warning. Ryan stopped a few steps away. He raised his hands to show he meant no harm. "I only want to understand. I saw your face. You are not like the others here. Who are you?" The woman's eyes narrowed. For a moment she said nothing, only studied him as if measuring his worth. Then she shook her head. "You should forget you saw me. Go home. Live your simple life. Do not speak of me again." Ryan felt a strange stubbornness rise within him. "I cannot forget. You stood in the square while everyone else cheered. You did not join them. You knew something. And when I saw your face, I saw more than a stranger. Tell me the truth. Please." The woman's gaze softened for a brief instant, but then she pulled her hood tighter. "If I speak, you will not believe me. If I stay, I put myself in danger. And if you remain near me, you place yourself in danger too." "Danger from what?" Ryan asked. "From them," she said, her voice sharp now. She tilted her head toward the sky, where the silver ship still hovered, unmoving, silent like predators waiting for the right moment. "The envoys are not what they claim to be." Ryan felt his breath catch again. He remembered the perfect voices, the flawless movements, the way the crowd obeyed without question. He had felt uneasy, but hearing her words gave shape to that unease. "What do you mean?" he pressed. The woman looked around the street, checking every shadow before she spoke again. "I will tell you more when the time is right. But not here. Too many ears. Too many eyes. Then at least tell me your name, Ryan said, his voice quiet but firm. The woman hesitated, then answered, Myra. The name echoed in his mind. Simple, yet it carried a weight, as if it belonged to stories never told. Myra, he repeated, and the sound of it felt strange on his tongue, as though speaking it tied him to her in a way he could not explain. She turned her face away. Go home, Ryan. He stiffened. How do you know my name? Myra did not answer. She stepped back into the shadows, and for a moment her pale face was hidden again. But her eyes shone, catching the fading light, and he felt them on him even as she turned and disappeared down the narrow street. Ryan stood frozen. The city noise returned to his ears, the chatter of people, the hum of the ships, the laughter of children. Yet inside him there was only silence and the memory of her gaze. He had come to the square to waste a day. He had planned to leave unchanged. Instead, he had seen the face of someone who carried secrets too large for words. And somehow, he felt bound to her now. As the suns dipped lower and the shadows deepened, Ryan walked slowly back toward his home. The voices of the envoys still rang in the distance, smooth and perfect, filling the night with promises. But all he could think of was the silver lines on Myra's skin, the weight in her voice, and the truth he was sure she carried. The night in Arvin was never fully dark. The towers glowed with lamps, and the silver ships above the city cast a faint light across the streets. Ryan lay in his small room, staring at the ceiling, unable to rest. The image of Myra's face returned again and again. The silver lines on her skin, the sharpness of her eyes, the way she spoke his name as if she had always known it. He turned onto his side, but rest would not come. The words she left him with echoed in his mind. The envoys are not what they claim to be. At last, he sat up. He knew he could not ignore this. He had lived a simple life, fixing broken machines and avoiding the noise of politics. But now the weight of something larger pressed against him. He needed answers. The next morning, Ryan returned to the central square. The banners still hung high, and the people still gathered to watch the envoys. Traders told stories of strange gifts the envoys had already shared. A small device that could clean water in seconds. A stone that glowed with endless light. The people praised them as saviors. Ryan moved through the crowd, his eyes searching every corner. At first, he saw nothing. Then, in the shadow of the council hall, he noticed the familiar shape of the hooded cloak. Myra stood half-hidden, watching the stage with the same tense stillness as before. He made his way toward her. She noticed him at once and shook her head firmly, as if warning him away. But he did not stop. When he reached her, he spoke in a low voice. You told me the envoys are not what they seem. I need to know more. I cannot walk away now. Myra's eyes narrowed beneath the hood. You are a fool for coming back. Do you not understand the risk? If they notice me, if they notice you near me, both of us will be in danger. Then tell me why, Ryan insisted. If I am to be in danger, I should at least know the truth. Myra glanced at the stage, where the envoys stood silently while the council leader spoke of new plans for schools and towers. She stepped back into the shadows and gestured for Ryan to follow. He did so, his pulse quick with anticipation. They walked into a narrow alley between two tall buildings. The noise of the crowd faded, replaced by the quiet hum of the ships above. Myra turned to him and lowered her hood just enough for her eyes to meet his. You saw my face yesterday, she said softly. Now you must understand what it means. Ryan nodded. The silver lines on your skin. You are not like the others here. I am both human and not human, Myra explained. My mother was from this world. My father was one of them. Ryan's eyes widened. One of the envoys. Myra shook her head. Not exactly. The envoys you see now are not individuals. They are parts of something larger, connected like threads in a web. My father broke free from that web long ago. He lived as a wanderer until he met my mother. When I was born, I carried both his blood and hers. That is why I am different. That is why I know what they plan. Ryan felt his chest tighten. What do they plan? Myra's gaze grew sharper. They do not come as friends. They come as conquerors. They will not use armies or weapons. They will use trust. They will use promises. They will feed humanity gifts until you no longer remember how to live without them. And when the time is right, they will tighten their hold. This city will not rise with them. It will kneel. The words sank deep into Ryan's mind. He thought of the cheering crowds, the gifts already shared, the way people looked at the envoys as if they were saints. Everything Myra said seemed impossible, yet every part of him felt it was true. Why tell me? He asked. I am no leader. I am no soldier. I am only a mechanic. Because you saw me, Myra replied. Others looked past me, but your eyes did not. You felt something was wrong before I spoke. That is why I chose to speak to you. You may be a mechanic, but you are also human, and that is enough. Ryan swallowed hard. What can we do against them? They are powerful, and they have the council on their side. No one will believe us. Myra looked away, her face shadowed. I do not expect the city to rise with us. I only expect to survive long enough to reveal their true nature. I have information hidden outside the city. Proof of what they are. But I cannot reach it alone. They watch for me. If I go alone, I will not make it. That is why I need your help. The words struck Ryan like a hammer. He had lived his whole life avoiding such burdens, but now fate had placed one directly in his hands. If he refused, he could return to his quiet life, repairing machines until the day he died. If he accepted, he would step into danger, hunted by beings far greater than himself. He thought of the ships above, waiting in perfect silence. He thought of the voices of the envoys, smooth and flawless, designed to calm the mind. And then he thought of Myra's eyes, sharp and alive, carrying both human fire and alien clarity. I will help you, he said at last. Myra studied him carefully, as if testing the weight of his words. Then she gave a single nod. Good. We leave at dawn. Meet me at the old tower on the east edge of the city. Tell no one, not even your friend. The fewer who know, the safer we will be. Ryan agreed, though his stomach knotted with fear. Before she left, Myra leaned closer and spoke in a low voice. Do not let them see your doubt. The envoys can sense weakness in the mind. Keep your thoughts guarded. Trust only yourself, and trust me. Then she pulled her hood back up and vanished into the shadows, leaving Ryan alone in the narrow alley. He stood there for a long time, his mind racing. The streets of Arvin still rang with songs of hope, but he no longer heard them as promises. He heard them as chains. When he finally walked home, the night sky was heavy with silver ships that never moved. And for the first time in his life, Ryan knew his simple days were gone. The dawn came quietly to the city of Arvin. The twin suns rose over the towers, casting long beams of golden light through the streets. Traders opened their stalls early, families hurried to their work, and the square once again filled with people who came to see the envoys. The air carried the same excitement as the day before, but Ryan felt none of it. He packed a small bag with simple tools, a flask of water, and a few pieces of bread. His hands trembled as he tied the straps, for he knew this was not an ordinary day. He had chosen a path that would change everything. Taro knocked on his door just as he was about to leave. His friend's cheerful face appeared in the frame. Ryan, come with me. The envoys will speak again today. They will show more gifts. You should not miss this. Ryan hesitated. He hated to lie, but he could not tell Taro the truth. I have repairs to finish in the East Tower, he said. Maybe later. Taro laughed. You and your machines. One day you will regret wasting your time while history is made. Maybe, Ryan replied softly. He gave his friend a small smile, then closed the door behind him. His heart felt heavy, but his decision was firm. The streets grew busier as he walked east. He kept his head low, avoiding the guards who patrolled near the square. The silver ship still hovered above, unmoving, glowing faintly in the morning light. They looked peaceful to everyone else, but to Ryan they looked like waiting predators. At the edge of the city stood the old tower, a broken structure left from another age. Its walls were cracked, and vines grew across its base. Few people came here anymore, for it held no value. To Ryan, it felt like the perfect place to meet in secret. Myra was already waiting. She leaned against the tower's base, her hood still drawn, though the light of the suns revealed part of her face. When she saw him, she gave a slight nod. You came, she said. I said I would, Ryan answered. Myra's eyes searched his face, perhaps looking for fear. Once we leave the city, there is no return to the life you knew. Are you ready for that? Ryan drew in a long breath. I am ready. She studied him for another moment, then turned. Follow me. They left the city through an old maintenance tunnel hidden behind the tower. The air inside was damp, the walls lined with rusted pipes that had not been used for years. Ryan carried a small lantern, its dim glow guiding their steps. For a time, neither spoke. Only the sound of their footsteps echoed in the dark tunnel. At last, Ryan broke the silence. You said you have proof. Where is it? Myra glanced at him. Far from here. My father left records before he died. He hid them in a place outside the reach of the envoys. That is where we must go. The journey will not be easy. The envoys may already suspect me, and if they do, their watchers will follow. Ryan tightened his grip on the lantern. Then we must be faster than them. Myra's lips curved in the faintest smile. You are braver than I thought. They walked for hours through the tunnels, sometimes climbing over fallen stones, sometimes squeezing through narrow passages. At last they emerged into the open land beyond Arvin. Ryan stopped to take in the sight. The world outside the city was wild. Rolling hills stretched into the distance, covered in tall grass that swayed in the wind. Strange birds flew across the sky, their calls sharp and haunting. The air smelled of earth and freedom. Myra lifted her hood and let the wind touch her face. For the first time, Ryan saw her expression clearly. There was sadness in her eyes, but also strength. This land does not sing the way the city does, she said quietly. But it is honest. Out here, what you see is what is true. Ryan nodded, though his mind was heavy with questions. Myra, how did your father break free from them? If the envoys are connected, how did one escape? Myra looked into the distance. He told me that freedom begins in the smallest thought. A single doubt can cut a thread in the web. He carried that doubt until the web could not hold him. It cost him much, but he chose to live as himself, not as part of them. Her voice grew softer. He told me humans have a gift the envoys fear. The gift of choice. That is why they do not use force. They fear what will happen if all humans choose to resist. Ryan let the words settle in his mind. For the first time, he felt the weight of his own choice. He was no longer simply a mechanic. He was part of something larger. The two continued walking until the suns climbed high above. They rested beneath the shade of a broken stone wall that once marked an old road. Ryan shared his bread, and Myra accepted it with quiet thanks. As they ate, Ryan noticed movement in the sky. At first he thought it was a bird, but then the shape grew clearer. A small silver craft glided overhead, moving slowly as if scanning the ground. Myra's eyes darkened. They are searching. Ryan felt his stomach twist. For you. For both of us now, she replied. She pulled her hood lower. We must keep moving. If they mark our path, they will send hunters. They set out again, this time moving faster. Ryan's legs ached, but he pushed himself forward, driven by the thought of what would happen if they were caught. By evening they reached a ridge of black stone. From its top, they could see the city of Arvin far behind, glowing with lights beneath the silver ships. It looked peaceful from this distance, yet Ryan knew danger rested over every roof. Myra stopped at the ridge. From here, the path will grow harder. The records my father left are hidden in a place few dare to go. The Valley of Silence. It lies beyond these hills. The envoys cannot enter it easily, for the air there disrupts their machines. That is why he chose it. Ryan wiped sweat from his brow. Then that is where we will go. Myra studied him again. You speak as if the choice is simple. Do you not fear what waits for us? Ryan looked back at the glowing city. I fear staying more than leaving. In the city I would watch them take everything until nothing of us is left. Out here at least I can fight for something true. For a moment, Myra said nothing. Then she gave a small nod, her eyes softer than before. Then you are the ally I hoped for. The suns dipped low, painting the land in red and gold. They built a small fire in the shelter of the ridge, careful to keep the flame hidden. As the night came, Ryan lay awake, listening to the distant hum of silver craft moving across the sky. He felt fear pressing on him, but he also felt resolve. The night stretched long and heavy over the ridge. Ryan lay awake beside the dying fire, his eyes fixed on the stars above. The sky was filled with strange lights, some moving slowly, some pulsing like distant hearts. He wondered how many of them belonged to the envoys and how many were just the natural wonders of the heavens. Myra sat a little away from him, her hood still drawn though the flames no longer burned bright. She stared into the darkness as if listening for something hidden in the wind. You should rest, Ryan said quietly. Her head turned slightly toward him. I cannot. They are near. Ryan frowned. You can feel them. Yes, she replied. The connection they keep with humans allows me to sense when their presence draws closer. It is faint, but it is enough to warn me. Tonight, the air carries their shadow. Ryan sat up, his chest tight. Then we should not stay here. Myra nodded. At first light, we move again. The Valley of Silence is close, but the road will test us. They know the same path. They will try to stop us before we reach it. The fire went out completely, leaving only the cold breath of night. Ryan pulled his cloak tighter, trying to find comfort, but none came. He thought of the city behind them, safe in the glow of false peace, and of the hunters that now searched for them. His choice weighed heavier than ever, yet he did not regret it. When the first rays of dawn touched the horizon, Myra rose quickly. Come. We must be ahead of the sun before they arrive. They crossed the black ridge and entered rolling hills covered with tall grass. The blades brushed against their legs as they walked, whispering softly in the wind. Birds darted above, flashing bright colors, but even their song seemed muted, as if the land itself held its breath. Ryan carried the lantern though it was unlit, holding it like a small shield against the vastness around him. His steps were steady, though his heart raced each time he looked at the sky. The silver craft could appear at any moment. By midday, clouds gathered and the wind grew stronger. The grass bent low, and the air filled with dust. Myra pulled her cloak close, her eyes sharp as she studied the horizon. They are here, she whispered. Ryan followed her gaze and saw them. Far above, 3 silver shapes glided silently through the clouds. They were smaller than the great ships above Arvin, but their purpose was clear. They were hunters. Ryan felt a chill run through him. What do we do? Myra's voice remained calm. We keep moving. The Valley of Silence lies beyond that ridge. If we reach it, their craft will not follow. The air will break their hold. The hunters descended slowly, beams of pale light sweeping across the land as if searching for tracks. Ryan and Myra crouched low in the grass, hearts pounding, as the light passed dangerously close. "They will find us soon," Ryan whispered. Myra's eyes narrowed. "Then we must give them something else to follow." From beneath her cloak, she drew a small device made of dark stone and copper wires. She pressed it into Ryan's hands. "My father built this. It sends a false signal. If we leave it here, the hunters will think we remain, while we move another way." Ryan looked at the device with awe. "Will it work?" Myra gave the faintest smile. "It worked for him. It will work for us." They placed the device beneath a rock, then turned sharply east instead of north. For a while the hunters continued toward the false signal, their beams moving away. Relief filled Ryan's chest, but it did not last. One of the silver craft turned suddenly, circling back. "They doubt," Myra said, her face tense. "One will still follow us." They began to run, their feet pounding against the earth. The tall grass whipped at their legs, but they did not slow. Behind them, the hum of the silver craft grew louder. The ridge ahead loomed tall and dark. Beyond it, Ryan knew, lay the Valley of Silence. He pushed himself harder, his breath burning, his body screaming, but he refused to stop. A beam of pale light struck the ground just behind them. The earth hissed where it touched, leaving a black mark. Ryan's heart thundered in fear. "They are trying to strike us." Myra grabbed his arm, pulling him forward. "Not to kill. To weaken. They want us alive." They scrambled up the rocky slope of the ridge. Stones rolled beneath their feet, threatening to pull them down, but they climbed with all their strength. Another beam shot past, striking a boulder and shattering it into fragments. The air filled with dust and sharp edges. Ryan shielded his face with his arm, coughing, but Myra kept pulling. At last they reached the top, their bodies trembling with exhaustion. Before them stretched the Valley of Silence. It was a vast hollow in the earth, filled with swirling mists that glowed faintly blue. Strange towers of black stone jutted from the ground like teeth, and the air itself seemed to shimmer. Ryan felt the hair on his arms rise. The valley gave off a hum that was not sound but a feeling deep inside his chest. Myra breathed out slowly. "We made it." Behind them, the silver craft hovered at the ridge. It did not cross. The mist below the valley's edge pushed against its shape, and sparks of blue light flickered across its surface. The machine shuddered, then rose back into the clouds, unwilling to enter. Ryan watched with wide eyes. "It is true. The air here breaks them." Myra's face softened, relief passing over her features. "This is why my father chose it. They cannot touch us here." They descended into the mist, the world around them growing silent. Even the wind faded, and the sound of their footsteps became faint. It was as if the valley swallowed every noise. Ryan felt uneasy. "Why is it like this?" Myra's voice was low. "Long ago, this land held something the envoys could not master. Some say it was a weapon. Others say it was simply a gift of the earth. Whatever it was, it left this mark. Silence that even they cannot break." The deeper they walked, the heavier the air grew, yet with it came a strange peace. Ryan's fear eased, replaced by determination. For the first time since leaving the city, he felt they were truly safe. At last Myra stopped before a broken tower half buried in stone. She placed her hand against its surface. "Here. This is where he left the records." The broken tower loomed like the skeleton of a forgotten age. Its surface was carved with strange patterns, half buried by stone and time. Blue mist drifted around its edges, giving the air an otherworldly glow. Ryan stood beside Myra, his heart pounding as he wondered what secret her father had left here. Myra stepped closer and placed both hands against the stone. She whispered a phrase in a language Ryan did not know. At first nothing happened, then the ground shook softly. A seam opened in the tower, revealing a narrow path lit by faint blue light. "This is the place," Myra said. Her voice carried a weight of both hope and fear. They entered. The path led them down into the earth, where the silence grew even deeper. Their footsteps made no echo. Every sound felt swallowed the moment it left their lips. Ryan gripped the unlit lantern tightly as if it might guard him against the strange stillness. "What is this place really?" he asked. "My father told me it was once a sanctuary built by humans long before the envoys came," Myra replied. "Here they prepared in case the sky turned against them. But when the envoys arrived, the people of that age had already fallen. Only the silence remained." The passage ended in a wide chamber. At its center stood a great stone table covered in carvings. Around it, tall slabs of crystal rose from the floor like frozen flames. They glowed faintly, and within each one, images shifted and flickered as though alive. Myra stepped forward with trembling hands. "These are the records." Ryan moved closer, staring at the crystals. He saw images of cities rising under human hands, of machines built without envoy help, of ships sailing through the void of space on their own power. He saw people standing tall, free, their eyes filled with pride. "Is this real?" Ryan asked in awe. Myra nodded. "Yes. This is what my father wanted me to protect. Proof that humans were not always under the envoys. Proof that we built our own path." One of the crystals brightened, showing the image of tall silver figures arriving from the sky. The people greeted them with open arms, but slowly the images changed. Weapons were taken. Ships dismantled. The envoys' promises of peace became commands. Human leaders bowed, then vanished. A world of freedom turned into a world of quiet chains. Ryan clenched his fists. "They tricked us. They wanted us weak. That is why we are here," Myra said firmly. "The records show the truth. If we carry this knowledge back, others will rise. The silence will not last forever." Ryan turned to her, his eyes sharp with new strength. "Then we must take them. We must show everyone." Myra placed her palm against one of the crystals. The light spread from her hand, and the images poured into a small stone disc hidden beneath her cloak. She held it tightly, her face filled with determination. "This holds everything. My father built it for this moment. But once we leave the valley, the hunters will return. We cannot walk out in the open." Ryan nodded. "Then we will not walk. We will move as the people once did. With our own strength." They prepared to leave, but the chamber shook again. A deep hum filled the air. One of the crystals cracked, sending shards of blue light into the mist. Myra froze. "They have found us," she whispered. From the passage above came the sound of heavy steps. Figures of silver light moved in the doorway, their forms bending in and out of the mist. Though weaker inside the valley, they forced themselves forward, their shape flickering like broken reflections. Ryan stood in front of Myra, raising the lantern. "Stay behind me." The envoy shadows spoke, their voices layered and cold. "Return the record. Humanity belongs to us. You cannot change what has been written." Ryan's voice rang out firm and clear. "No. We decide our own path." The shadows advanced, but the closer they came, the more they faltered. The silence of the valley pressed against them, pulling apart their shape. Their voices turned to hisses. Myra touched Ryan's shoulder. "The lantern. Light it now." He struck the flint, and the lantern flared to life with a blue-white flame. The chamber filled with its glow. The envoy shadows shrieked as the flame struck them. Their forms shattered like glass in the mist, leaving only fading echoes. The silence returned. Myra lowered her hood, her face pale but steady. The flame of silence. My father told me it could drive them away. You held it with courage. Ryan breathed heavily, the lantern still trembling in his hand. They will not stop. They will wait for us outside. Myra held up the disc. Its surface pulsed with light. Then we must carry this truth to the people. Once they see what the envoys took, they will no longer obey. Humans will rise again. They climbed back to the surface. The mist of the valley swirled around them, but above the ridge the sky burned with silver shapes. The hunters circled, waiting. Ryan looked at Myra. If we leave, they will follow. If we stay, the truth remains buried. Myra's eyes met his, clear and unwavering. Then we leave. Even if only one of us survives, the truth must live. Together they stepped toward the edge of the valley. The mist parted before them, and the hunters stirred. Beams of light cut the sky, searching. But Ryan felt no fear now. His steps were steady, his heart strong. For the first time he understood why Myra's father had trusted the silence, why Myra had carried the burden alone, and why he himself had been chosen by chance when her hood fell in the crowd. It was not chance. It was choice. The envoys could rule with fear, but they could not rule choice. As they crossed the boundary of the valley, the hunters descended, their light blazing. Yet Ryan lifted the lantern high, and Myra held the disc close. The world might burn around them, but the truth was alive, carried by human hands.